Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We are broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Tuesday, February 11th, and Constance 99 on the live chat right here on Rumble. I don't often catch the show. Does Shannon usually start on time? Well, Constant 99, welcome to the live chat. And if you know me, you know that time is subjective here on the Shannon Joy Show. But luckily, because we have my amazing producer, Annie, she runs a tight ship and she is getting me highly disciplined. And yeah, we started at 12:05 today, which is good for me. You guys look phenomenal on the live chat. We're broadcasting live from Rumble, live from Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, every podcast platform you can ever imagine. Clout Hub, Daily Clout, Patriot TV, and we are adding platforms every single day. Big announcements coming up with a new platformer. We've been running the beta testing and it is unbelievable. So you guys are going to hear about that, but could not do it without all of you. This is a truly 100% independent operation. The Shannon Joy Show reaching upwards over 1 million people every single month. And we did it all our way, diligently over the course of 12 years, building platform over platform over platform. Could not do it without all of you, those of you who subscribe to the Shannon Joy Show and support this independent effort financially. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys can go to theshannonjoy.com right now, theshannonjoy.com. There are two things you can do to support the show. First and foremost, you can sign up for the daily e-newsletter that puts me directly in contact with you. Whether we are deplatformed or something happens, it gives me the opportunity to reach all of you. I send an email every single day laying out everything we're going to do on the show. You can also support the show with a monthly contribution and become an angel investor, a patron of the Shannon Joy Show, so that we can continue to be independent. Of course, we're so thankful for our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group, the Satellite Phone Store, and Don Polano of PCM and Associates, without whom we could not bring this show to you every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we've got a lot to get to today on the show. Here is the agenda. I am going to say hello to all of you on the live chat. I see some new faces, which is super exciting. As you know, I've made a commitment to this audience and to the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of vaccine injured, those who were injured during the kill protocols of COVID-19, during the lockdowns of COVID-19 and the rollout of the poison jab. So today on the program, we are not going to let your stories die in darkness, and we are not going to forget about your suffering, which is continuing despite the election of Donald Trump, right? The daddy vaccine, the daddy of the vaccine. And so we can't have that conversation, but we're going to continue to push that conversation. And in that vein, we are going to welcome into the Joy Virtual Studio at the bottom of the hour, good friend of the show, Deb Conrad. She was a whistleblower in the dark days of COVID lockdown and the rollout of the poison jab. She blew the whistle on her hospital system where she was working, letting everyone know that they were refusing to report COVID-19 vaccine injuries. She reported hundreds of those injuries to the VAERS reporting system in 2021. That got her fired and escorted out of the building. This was here in Rochester, New York, at Rochester General Hospital. She'll be joining me the bottom of the hour with her attorney, the amazing Werner Mendenhall. I cannot wait to introduce you to Werner as they talk about the legal battles that so many vaccine injured are facing, and also a very important, one of the most important legal battles regarding the COVID vaccine and on behalf of the COVID vaccine injured in the country, if not the world. And so we're going to get an update. They have a big court date coming up in mid-March, and we're going to be keeping an eye on that here on the Shannon Joy Show. So keep it tuned. It's going to be a very important interview at the bottom of the hour today. Tomorrow, we are welcoming Major Tom Haviland. He is an amazing warrior for truth. He's the guy who is doing the independent surveys of coroners across the United States of America with the reports on the fibrous white blood clots being pulled out of the bodies of so many Americans who are perishing, likely because of the COVID-19 vaccines. But again, that story is suppressed because Daddy Vax is in the White House and we can't talk about those things. Doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it here on the Shannon Joy Show. Major Tom Haviland with a big report tomorrow here on the Shannon Joy Show. We're also going to expose Elon Musk. I've been doing a deep dive. He is hailed as the savior of the conservative movement. He is essentially on par with Donald Trump, is the leader of the free world, the richest man in the world, and also has access to basically all of our government operations with his new DoGE team. So who is he? If he's the guy in charge of everything, well, we should probably know what his ideology is. We should know about his background, his father, his grandfather, and what he has in store for all of the little people. So that is tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. Also on Friday, we're going to go freestyle with Annie, who is the producer of the Shannon Joy Show. That'll be super fun. We'll spend a lot of time with you guys on the live chat. And then next Monday is the last show before February break. As you guys know, I made the commitment this year, first year in 12 years of doing this show, to take the weeks off that my children have off. So my kids who are still in the house, Mimi and Ted, are 13 and 16. Next week is February break. They're off from school and we're going to travel down to Florida to visit my sister. And so we're going to be off air on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week, and Monday the following week. We will have a show next week on Monday that will be me live. And then special guest Paul Stone, the founder of Colonial Metals Group and a regular on the Shannon Joy Show, also a sponsor of the show, is going to come in and guest host for me on Tuesday. Anything and everything that you need to know about the economy, the markets, the currency, the dollar devaluation, and skyrocketing gold and silver valuations. I've been watching the news. It's unbelievable. And you guys know Paul has been on the Shannon Joy Show multiple times. He's a wealth of information, a really cool guy. And I know he's going to take great care of all of you and answer all of your questions. So that's going to be a really great show. And then we will meet back here on the following Tuesday to continue with our reporting. So not a 3-week vacation with the family. It's going to be it's going to be close to 6 days. We're going to Florida to visit my sister. She's in Boca. And so we're going to be there for 4 days, 3 nights. And then Mimi and I are going to hop across the state over to Alabama to Gulf Shores for a big beach volleyball tournament that she's playing in with one of her fellow commits at Austin Peay University, where she is going to play collegiate Division I beach volleyball in 26. She's a junior, so she's a 26 commit. So that'll be super exciting. That's what I'm going to be up to next week. And then we'll be back to continue. Absolutely. MAV 22. Cannot wait to get my feet in the sand, do some grounding, earthing, and bask in the sunlight. I love the sun. It has healing power. We love vitamin D. Midwestern Doctor is actually a great resource. His Substack is amazing on the healing power of the sun. And yes, we're going to rest, relax, spend time with family. And that is so important. I'm going to try to unplug from the news of the day because it is overwhelming. Later this week, I am going to read a piece from John LeKay. He's just a rando on Twitter, but he wrote this piece that I think is really important. The disorienting modern experience on Twitter, now X, but also all of social media, unraveling the sentiment of unreality in contemporary life. We really have to do business with social media and the algorithms and how they're just pummeling us as humans left and right with all of these messages. Feels like a psyop half the time. And we've got to figure out how to guard our souls and our minds against that. And so if we get to that later in the week, we'll go through that piece as well. MAV22 says, log out of X while you're on vacation. Yeah, I mean, I've already begun to schedule myself on social media as best I can. I only allow about an hour or so in the morning and an hour or so at night. And sometimes I go over, but it's really helped to reorient me to natural life. And I think that's going to be a very important theme moving forward in 2025 and beyond. So, what else do we have on the agenda? We have Deb and Werner coming up bottom of the hour. Ooh, the Summit for Truth, March 29. So excited. Okay. It's the countdown. The site is up. You can get your tickets right now for my Summit for Truth. It is live in Rochester, New York. I will be there along with Naomi Wolf, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, Dr. Pierre Corey. We're adding Aaron Day to the list of panelists. He is an expert in cryptocurrencies, currencies in general, and the technocracy. So he is a recent addition. And I'm also adding other guest panelists as well. Some pretty big names in the lineup. We have Mary Holland coming as well. And it's going to be an unbelievable day. Full day event live at the Bethel Christian Fellowship on East Avenue in Rochester, New York. We're going to spend a lot of time with the guests and the panel asking questions, having discourse, and then there will be a ton of time for you to meet them, ask questions, mingle, connect with each other. This is an amazing event. It all goes to benefit Americans for Healthcare Alternatives, AFA. This is an organization dedicated, grassroots, bottom up, local here to Western New York, and they are dedicated to building a brick and mortar wellness center with real doctors, real nurses, people from outside of the system that can actually contribute to healing. Every penny of proceed goes to AFA. So we're going to bless them with as much cash as we possibly can on that day, March 29th. And I want to meet all of you. I want to see all of you coming together, human interaction, discourse, and companionship, fellowship. So important, right? We do a lot of our work online, but we have to come together. This event draws from all over the country. We've had people come from Texas, Florida, California. But if you are within driving or flying distance of Rochester, New York, you are invited to come for a full day event. And you can get all of those details at summitfortruth.com. That is summitfortruth.com. All right. Annie, I think we got to everything. Let's thank Annie Cyrus for producing the show. She does an amazing job every day. And I think we hit all of the agenda items for today. At the end of the show today, we are going to look at a piece from Catherine Austin Fitts. It was actually sent to a group of us in media. There is, you can see in the show notes today, the topic of our discussion, a small but growing cadre of intrepid researchers and journalists are scrutinizing the breathtaking takeover of federal operations by DoGE and Elon Musk, this unelected group of bureaucrats and oligarchs that seemingly have the keys to the castle. They've been granted access by Donald Trump and his Treasury Department head, Scott Bessent, among others. Conning has now declared victory. You can all go back to sleep. Everyone go back to sleep and celebrate Alex Jones and Dan Bongino and Con Inc. and Bizarro Con have declared full victory for all of us now that Trump is in office and Elon is firmly entrenched in power as well. We've won. The deep state has been defeated. And well, let's just all celebrate. Well, do you really think it's going to be that easy? I'm skeptical of that. And so is Catherine Austin Fitts. And in this piece, she lays out the larger plan, the plan that I think that Trump is subjected to. It is being implemented, she writes, and it's also highly strategic. The goal is to build the digital concentration camp, looking through the fog of omni-war that is an everything war. They're hitting us from every angle, lots of chaos, lots of confusion. Here is what the high-speed building of the control grid looks like so far. And she lays out, there's a discussion about digital IDs, Stargate, switching fiscal control to central bankers, the social credit scoring system, which is the specialty of Elon Musk. It is a WeChat style, Chinese Communist Party style social credit system. That's what X will become, the everything app. We're also going to look at the crypto push, land grabs, which are very important. She mentions the Gaza genocide and the marketing scheme, the propaganda that they're going to use to lay all this out. So we're going to do this today at the end of the show after we talked to Werner Mendenhall and Deb Conrad. This group of researchers, very important journalists that are not falling for the MAGA Inc., Con Inc., Bizarro Con, right wing, euphoria over a bunch of executive orders that really, according to Daniel Horowitz, represent a thin veneer of victory beneath some really big, substantial, foundational problems. Daniel Horowitz, one of those very important independent researchers and journalists, yesterday on his show, very concerned that these executive orders that are issued by President Trump will be swallowed up by, court challenges. And unless the legislature, the Congress, right, so the House of Representatives and the Senate get to work on codifying into law the nuts and bolts of these executive orders, he's very concerned that all of them will fall by the wayside and we won't get those agenda items. So we'll have the razzle dazzle and the celebration, but none of the real good stuff actually happening. And so Daniel is actually an amazing resource right now. I recommend his daily podcast. He is watching very closely the discernible policy outcome. Words are just words. The celebration is just a celebration. What matters is what actually happens. And in context of that, when you look at Donald Trump, he suspended the penny, apparently, via executive order during the Super Bowl. By the way, that was 11 million taxpayer dollars for him to go to the Super Bowl, which was a very highly politicized event. Donald Trump decides on a whim, I suppose, he wants to get rid of the penny. Some are saying this is the first step to acclimating us towards a central banking digital currency or a private banking digital currency or token, likely Tether. So he decides to get rid of the penny. Apparently, he likes cutting pennies. However, he hasn't cut a single penny of government spending since being in office. Despite all the hoopla and the efficiency and the closing of this organization and that organization and all of the waste, fraud, and the abuse, it looks as if that money is not being cut and returned to the taxpayers. It is not being cut. These departments aren't being cut. They're just being made more efficient. That money is being diverted to other organizations, probably highly lucrative contracts with private corporations like the ones that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and their merry band of technocrats run right now. They're looking to cash in on the bling. That's where the money is likely going to come from. And it will be a consolidation of power into fewer and fewer hands. Very concerning. Now, I get in big trouble for talking about these things because, well, we're all just supposed to celebrate the victory and trust the plan, right? And settle down. Well, we're not going to do that here on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to prepare as many of you as we possibly can for what is coming. This does not have to be inevitable. It doesn't have to be this way. We can still win, right? We have a set of circumstances that we are going to have to grapple with as a country, very serious problems. And what is at stake is our liberty, our freedom, our constitution, free markets, and our ability to raise families, plant gardens, build houses, and be happy. Okay. So everything depends on how we, the people, respond to it. We don't have to accept this. But if we just go on our merry way and go back to sleep and get in the armchair and just think that Bobby Kennedy and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all their people are going to protect us, then they are going to have their way with us, and it's not going to be a good way. So this independent group of journalists is really important. They're taking a critical look at the new administration from outside of the left versus right paradigm. You can find their work at thefreethoughtproject.com. The Last American Vagabond is part of that. I'm going to be bringing these journalists into the Shannon Joy Show on a regular basis. And yes, they are going to be critical of the people who wield power in this country, namely the Trump administration. And that's what I think my charge is as a journalist, an observer, a cultural observer, and a commentator in these historic times. So you can find their work at thefreethoughtproject.com and also at unlimitedhangout.com, which is curated by Whitney Webb. And I think she's going to be one of the more important independent journalists as well. She posted this yesterday, and I agree with her sentiment. And I quote, "If you think the deep state was defeated and all you had to do was pull a lever for the right team, and you can just watch as everything is made magically better and do nothing but trust the plan and enjoy the show, and this is what MAGA and Con Inc. is telling you to do, you probably confused what the deep state actually means with the wing of the uniparty that lost last year's election. Mass complacency," warns Whitney Webb, "in a time of drastic, disruptive, fundamental changes is not a recipe for success. It can actually lead us into greater, more dystopian tyranny and also the technocracy." She goes on, "Vigilance and scrutiny matter, as does taking responsibility for your own life from the bottom up and community, your local community, instead of placing all your hope for a better life and world in the government. Many of the people who used to distrust the system most, that would be conservatives, the medical freedom movement, MAGA, and Con Inc., have been led to believe that they can fully trust everything happening and can let their guard down against tyranny. That must not happen." And I agree completely with Whitney Webb. So we are going to talk about that at the top of the hour after we let Werner and Deb Conrad go. But first, before we bring them into the Joy Virtual Studio, I want to say hello to all of you on the live chat. You know I love to see your comments, answer your questions. If you have them, put them in all caps so that Annie sees them, and we'll see if we can get to them at the end of the show. Buskman is on the live chat, looking great. Edgar 615, great to see you. We have Guitar Lily, Constance 99. You're new on the live chat, and it's really great to see you. Really appreciate your comments. Dad Driver 66, unfollow. Orange Man melting everywhere, melting brains everywhere. So Dad Driver does not like the fact that I am criticizing the Trump administration. And I can tell you, if you are in the cult, if you worship at the altar of MAGA and Donald Trump, then you probably won't like this show. But it is very important for there to be scrutiny and journalistic scrutiny, especially of people in positions of power, especially from the right. Right? No one trusts the mainstream news media or the left-wing news media or MSNBC or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, you know it. All of them are highly distrusted by the American right. But it's very important that we have, people on our side of the aisle who aren't just going to sycophantically worship everything this administration does and not scrutinize the threats to our Constitution and liberty that they pose. And so we're going to do that here. So feel free to unfollow. I'm totally cool with that. Soylent Goy is with us on the live chat. Great to see you. We also have, who else do we have? Mark the Reagan is with us. And Longmeadow, great to see you. Be My Valentine is with us as well. Saw lots of demonic symbolism at the Super Bowl, just as in the past. Nothing new under the sun. I actually wrote a post about that, Be My Valentine, in context of Kanye, who has really gone off the rails. People are saying that, he suffers from schizophrenia. I'm not sure what it is, but Kanye was one of those, Christian converts that I don't think ever was really a Christian. And there are some new age occult themes that I'm seeing and picking up on, not only in the Super Bowl, but within our team. And I posted this out the other day, and let me see if I can grab it real quick. And then we're going to go to break and bring Werner and Deb Conrad in. But I started thinking about this because I had a really interesting conversation with my kids my 16-year-old and 13-year-old are really interested in the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake feud, right? And so I had a conversation. They wanted to watch a documentary about that. Now, I hate rap music. I'm not into it. I think all of it has like demonic undertones. And so, it's not allowed in my house, but they're kids and they access this stuff, and they were interested in this documentary. So I ended up watching it with them, and I'm glad that I did because it opened up a great conversation last night, honestly, about the Hegelian dialectic and the problem reaction solution propaganda that we're constantly submitted to, the fake choices and also the fake feuds, pitting people against each other with a larger agenda that makes those who are engaged in the feud a lot of money. And so we talked about Drake versus, Kendrick versus Drake. We talked about Bush versus Biden, or I'm sorry, we talked about Trump versus Biden. We talked about the Elon versus Bill Gates, and how these people will often try to divide us, split us apart, pit us against each other, and create a lot of confusion and fear, when meanwhile they're just running off to the bank, all right, and making their billions. And so the kids got it immediately, which made my heart sing. As a mom, you're like, okay, they totally get it. And but this also brought up the conversation about Kanye. And I posted this out yesterday because it is something I've noticed, and I haven't done a full show on it, but I think we will look a little closer into this just as a Christian. I posted Kanye's Christianity was largely a production of right-leaning media propaganda and was likely never a real conversion, but really a gross deception. I see New Age spiritualism and pagan ritual worship as a very strong theme among the New Right, MAGA, MAHA, and the Great Awakening movement, especially evident to me. It's evident in the high profile Catholic converts and newly baptized Christ is King Christians. Even the acronym MAGA has relationship to the Church of Satan as the highest level of priesthood. And so Paula White, as the new Trump appointed MAGA priestess, is likely not a mistake. So I warn my Christian friends, a lot of you are atheist, agnostic, you might not be Christian, but for Christian friends, be very careful of wolves in sheep's clothing and test everything against your biblical faith. And so I am heavy in my Bible, chronological reading, and just be very aware that that is out there. So it's a theme that I'm picking up on and I'm seeing. And so I agree, Be My Valentine, that is something that we always have to keep an eye on. But, Kanye was pumped up by Glenn Beck and a lot of so-called Christians on the right, and proved to be, now he's pimping Nazi swastika t-shirts on his website. That's the full evolution of Kanye as a Christian. And, these are not the Christians that I want to define what is Christianity to me. And so we have to keep an eye on that. So you guys are great. Mary 336 is the last person I would trust as a Christian. Well, that's the problem, right? When we have people posing as Christians and using Christianity or appropriating Christianity in order to draw Christians in or paint a picture of what a Christian actually is when they're not really that, that's a problem, especially for someone who is a Bible-believing, freedom-loving, liberty-loving Christian who is okay with people practicing any type of faith, just not appropriating mine. So enough with that. We're going to go to break. We have Werner Mendenhall in the Joy virtual studio. I'm so thrilled to talk to him, and also Deb Conrad, whistleblower, about their case, one of the most important cases that we're going to look at moving forward regarding the vaccine injured and the reporting of vaccine injury to the VAERS reporting system. Keep it tuned right here. We're going to take one commercial break. We'll be right back on the Shannon Joy Show. Hey everyone, let's talk about something that most people don't even think about: EMF protection. Everywhere we go, we are surrounded by electromagnetic fields, Wi-Fi, cell signals, and countless other sources. If you're like me, you want to protect yourself and your family, and that's where the Faraday beanie from Sat 123 .com comes in. Yes, it's cute, it's sassy, but it's also an EMF blocking machine. Whether you're commuting, working, or just relaxing at home, the Faraday beanie gives you an added layer of defense against the invisible waves around us. And just like everything else at sat123.com, this beanie is made with quality and care by people who value your safety. Don't wait to take control of your well-being or your family's well-being. Go to sat123.com right now. Use that promo code JOY, J-O-Y, for an extra 10% off. They have great colors, great styles, and all of your Faraday needs. So the Faraday blankets, bags, pouches, and of course, the Escape Zone beanies, which I love, love, love. I wear this every single night. 10% off right now at sat123.com. That's sat123.com. Stay safe, stay stylish, stay warm with the Faraday beanie from sat123.com.
After a lifetime of hard work and smart investing, the last thing you want to worry about is losing your retirement savings. Hi, I'm Paul Stone, CEO of Colonial Metals Group. We specialize in helping hardworking Americans like you take back control of their financial future, safeguard their savings. In economic times like these, millions turn to physical precious metals as a form of insurance, while conventional investment choices face challenges or even collapse. If you have an IRA, 401k, or other type of retirement account, my team at Colonial Metals Group would like to help you build a financial protection plan outlining the most secure future for you. We've put together a free protection kit showing how you can start investing in precious metals 100% tax and penalty free to protect and grow your wealth. You can download it for free now by clicking the button below. Customers, we're very proud to say, across the country have been very impressed by my team's in-depth knowledge of financial history and their ability to listen to you. We hold the same conservative values you hold and ones our great nation was built on. And we can't wait to start helping you and working with you. Again, just click the button below to download our retirement protection kit for free now.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. KB Smile on the live chat. I see your question. What was the documentary that you watched with your kids? I believe it was an NBC. Drake versus Kendrick was the name of it. And obviously, you know, it's mainstream news media, but at the end, there was a really good part that opened up the conversation. So that was the documentary that we watched. Without further ado, I want to bring into the Joy Virtual Studio Werner Mendenhall and Deb Conrad, longtime friends of the Shannon Joy Show. It's so great to see you guys and to hear about your actions here in New York State. Deb Conrad, as I mentioned, in 2021, whistleblower, freedom fighter, a freedom fighter for truth about the reality of COVID-19 vaccine injury that she was seeing as a PA at her position in Rochester General Hospital. She tried and successfully filed, I want to say, hundreds of vaccine injury reports to the VAERS system. This drew the attention and the ire of the administration at Rochester General Hospital, and they fired her for her efforts to report these injuries. Deb and Werner, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And so you guys have launched a lawsuit. Hi, Deb, how are you? Yeah. So Werner, do you want to fill us in on just the basics of the case? And you have a big court case, or you have a big date in court coming up in mid-March, and give us the status. But let's remind the audience of Deb's story. Either you can tell that, Werner, or Deb, if you want to tell it in your own words, you can as well.
Well, let me talk legally a little bit, and she can fill in some of the personal impact that this case has had on her and what happened to her at Rochester Regional.
Very good.
But we filed what's called a Federal False Claims Act case against Rochester Regional Health System. And a false claim is when you fail, when you've asserted that you're going to do something and then you don't do it. And one of the things that the health system claimed it was going to do was, because it was a vaccinator, it was vaccinating people for COVID-19, it agreed to report any injuries that came after the shot. And those injuries could be, and I think the most common one was, ironically, the people who were hospitalized with COVID-19 after having got the shot. But that's a reportable event, and it's on the level of an event like, say, child sexual abuse or spousal abuse. When medical providers see a problem, they are required by law to report that problem to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And the reason for that is because we've stripped liability away from these companies. They don't have to pay, really, if you're injured, for the most part. But in exchange for that, they wanted a monitoring system. This was all set up back in the 80s. They wanted a monitoring system for safety purposes. And that monitoring system was relied on, especially with this experimental shot in this situation, to quickly gain knowledge of the injuries that were occurring. And what we have found is that almost all hospitals, and including Rochester Regional Health System, suppressed anyone who was trying to make a report into the system that shows how dangerous these shots are. And there are various metrics in terms of the danger. I'm going to compare two things real quickly. The flu shot has about 1 in a million adverse reactions that are reported. The COVID shot is so much worse. It's about 1 in 800.
Oh, my word.
So it is multiple times more. And unfortunately, with the COVID shot and the way that it works, I think in the long term, and I think many of us are seeing this, we're seeing long-term injury, not immediate injury, long-term injury in the form of cancers, strokes, heart disease, and other problems that I think have become more common in our society.
Well, and isn't the problem here that if people aren't aware, if Americans aren't aware of the risk profile for the COVID vaccine particularly, but all vaccines, then when they have a stroke or get cancer or develop heart disease or have another debilitating vaccine injury, they don't even know that it has anything to do with the vaccine. And so that makes it difficult for them to treat whatever it is that they're dealing with, because they don't understand the root cause. And this is all really a big cover up by government officials at the federal level. But you're talking about administrative officials and hospital systems across the country. Were they acting with malice or incompetence, or why were they? I mean, what is your handle on why they would? I mean, they were hostile to Deb, and they fired her for making those reports, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what do you think the mindset or the memo? I mean, if there was a memo that went out in those hospitals, like, what was it? Like, ignore this stuff, or lie to the victims and tell them that it's in their heads? Or, I mean, what do you think is going on there?
We're going to certainly find out more as we get into discovery. I want to see the memos that were circulated among the administrators at Rochester Regional Health System, certainly.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing was they were caught up in this mindset that this was a safe and effective vaccine for COVID-19, and it was not at all. And they were trying to encourage their employees and the public to get it, and they were completely sold on this. So that's the most generous way to look at it. We are certainly looking to find whether there's financial incentive to suppress people like Deb Conrad, who were trying to make these reports, and that may be in there as well. But it was just an irrational, it was an irrational way to behave regarding this experimental brand new shot that, I think the consequences were obvious very quickly, and they certainly were for Deb.
Were you able to uncover any type of financial incentive for rates of vaccination or numbers of vaccinations? Has there been anything that
Yes.
you discovered in that case, in that scenario?
Yes. I mean, the main thing was the stick in that sense. There were threats to pull their Medicare and Medicaid funding if they didn't get to a high vaccination rate among their employees.
Right.
So that was the main thing. And it is really ironic because patients would come in unvaccinated, of course, and yet you're requiring all your employees to be vaccinated with a vaccine that we now know doesn't work, and in fact is contaminated, as we're seeing verified now with DNA.
Unbelievable. So, what is happening in March? Your a very important court date is coming up, and so you have filed a federal false claim act on behalf of Deb against Rochester General Hospital, which, interestingly enough, is right in my own backyard. So, it's about 20 minutes away from my home. That the system, so they're deeply embedded. What is the nature of the case? And we'll get that from Werner, and then I know you have a hard out, Werner, at 12:50. So we'll keep Deb on
Okay.
after you scoot out, and we'll get her the personal story about what she went through, and how that impacted her in her life. But what is coming up in March that you want people to know about, and how are you going to activate the public on behalf of the truth in this case?
Well, it is a public hearing. It's on March 11th. I unfortunately I don't know the exact time offhand right now.
Right.
I just know I have to be in Buffalo to make this argument before Judge Sinatra.
Okay.
And it will be public. We will certainly have a meeting after that with whoever shows up to explain what's going on with the case. And this is a crucial hearing. This is a brand new case. No one has ever filed a case under the False Claims Act for violations of the VAERS program before. Deb's is the first case. And it's partly because these hospitals all signed a program participation agreement where they agreed in that agreement they would make these reports. They agreed that it was a material violation not to make the reports. And they actually agreed that it was a criminal violation not to make the
Wow.
report. So
Wow.
we would love to see a new U.S. attorney take a look at the criminal side of this as well and join us in our efforts to hold the health system responsible.
So you're saying that if we have a friendly attorney, federal attorney, that they could come alongside you in this case
Yes.
and help prosecute this. And so, very interesting. Where can people go to support your cause and learn more about the case and what they can do to help you out?
Well, Deb has a website up called iamdebconrad.com. That's where I
Awesome.
suggest people go. This is a very important case, and frankly, I'm going to make a pitch for some funding. We need some funding
Sure.
to pay for the depositions, to pay for the discovery, to pay for the work that's been done and that is going to be done. And I'm not going to stop whether I only have two nickels to rub together, but if
Yeah.
people would like to help, it would be very welcome. It's a very important case.
Well, Werner has been one of the most unbelievable advocates, not just for Deb, but for vaccine injury and the cause of the vaccine injury injured across the country. He works tirelessly on these cases. And this case, the implication is it's very important, right? The VAERS, the vaccine adverse event reporting system, is a system that is put in place to track and to catch safety signals. So when a vaccine goes bad and it's harming and killing people, like, you need that reporting in order for you to pull it from the market or to help the people who are injured by those vaccines. And the idea that these hospitals were refusing to report, particularly for COVID-19 vaccines, is absolutely insane. If you win this case against Rochester General, Werner, what does that mean? What signal would that send to hospital systems across the country? And what would that signal send to the vaccine injured, not just here in New York, but across the country?
Well, it would be a tsunami of accountability across the country. There's 2,800 hospital systems that I believe have not followed the law. It also provides a mechanism for the injured to hold the hospitals responsible for failing to make the reports of that vaccine injured person's injury.
Right.
So we believe that we believe, and we in fact are working on a program to help vaccine injured hold hospitals accountable for failing to report.
Right. Well, and that means they wouldn't have to, because we all know how clunky and terrible and awful the federal system is in terms of compensating vaccine injured patients for their vaccine injury. It's a terrible system. So this would essentially hold hospitals liable potentially criminally and also financially outside of that antiquated, useless system that is now what the federal government uses, correct?
Right. It would not, unfortunately, I don't think it would compensate for all the damage, financial damage and otherwise to these people who are vaccine injured, but it would give them some accountability, and there would actually be some financial incentive to that.
Okay.
Just, I understand how injured people have been, and we've got to get rid of the CICP process. That's the countermeasures injury process, and we've got to get a fair process for the people who have been injured by these shots.
Absolutely. We're talking to Werner Mendenhall. He is Deb Conrad's attorney and really a fierce advocate for the vaccine injured. I mentioned to you, Werner, before I had you in, I really want to get you on for a full show because this is just one of the cases that you're working on. And you are one of the most optimistic, hardworking warriors. It doesn't matter what's happening politically. It doesn't matter what is happening, in the States. Like, you are just barreling forward with so many cases. And so I really want to thank you for all that you're doing. And guys, if there is one attorney that you are going to support in this battle who has had victory, all right, who has successfully represented some of these cases, please feel free to contribute to Werner Mendenhall's efforts on behalf at Deb Conrad at imdebconrad.com. Anywhere else people can find you or your organization or what you're doing before I let you go?
Just WernerMendenhall.com, and we're part of an organization called freedomcouncil.org. And that's a group of about 250 attorneys. They need your support as well. That goes to directly support all of the information that these attorneys need to be successful in their cases.
Okay, very good. Well, you keep it up. Cannot wait to see you in Buffalo. You're going to be out in our neck of the woods, so that's going to be great. And we'll be watching this case very closely. Thank you, Werner.
I'm planning on getting there. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, let's go to Deb Conrad, who is the subject of this very important case that is going to be adjudicated here in Buffalo, New York. Deb is a longtime friend of the Shannon Joy Show. She has been to so many of our summits. She has emceed our summits for Truth and Wellness. By the way, we have another summit coming up on March 29th, and I'm going to invite Werner to be at that as well. Of course, you as well too, Deb. One of the bravest women. She stood up in the dark days of 2021 and spoke the truth about vaccine injury that she was seeing in her position. And that came at a great cost for Deb Conrad. She lost her job as a result, now filing this lawsuit. Deb, welcome to the show again. And let's just get an idea of how you're doing right now. And, you've obviously lost your job at RGH and you're pursuing this legal action, but how is everything for you? And what have you been up to?
Well, it's been challenging. I mean, I think one of the things about being a whistleblower that people don't realize is, kind of going on with your life. I live in a small town. The hospital system is in my small town, and it's difficult, to go out, go shopping. I fear running into people. Obviously.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little awkward. But I'm doing well. I was able to secure part-time employment with a local primary care practice that I absolutely love. And I'm also working for Gold Care, doing some telemedicine and helping to build that platform. So I'm busy. I'm helping out attorneys doing medical chart review, helping to fight on the back end for the vaccine injured and for the families and the victims of people who died during the COVID days and of the COVID protocols. So I'm also doing that. I'm still working on advocacy and just continuing to push forward with this lawsuit in hopes that we can, secure some transparency and justice back in the, and I guess one of the big things is that, I have a difficult time trusting, vaccinations now as a result of what happened to me. So I want to get back to a place where I can trust the medical education that I received,
Right.
and that there's truth and transparency back in the medical system.
Deb, if you could please remind the audience just briefly about your experience, if everyone can kind of bring themselves back to 2021 here in New York, we were in just the depths of lockdown, masking protocols, small businesses were shuttered. This was the beginning of the relentless coercive push of of hospitals onto their employees to get vaccinated. And that led to eventually the firing of I want to say 10 to 15% of their workforce across New York State for being unvaccinated. So Deb was right in the middle of all of that. You were working as a PA. And can you just briefly remind the audience about what you saw, what you witnessed, and why you felt like you had to stand up? Very difficult to stand up as a whistleblower. Incredibly difficult to do this. But remind us of that, please.
Yeah, so I've been a hospitalist PA. I did inpatient medicine nearly 100% of my career. And I worked the whole COVID pandemic in 2020, taking care of COVID infected patients in the hospital, going through that nightmare. And when the vaccines came out in December of 2020, I just immediately started noticing strange things that I just had never seen before in my career. And one of the things that really stuck out was, like Werner said, the amount of people coming into the hospital infected with COVID who had just been vaccinated. And here we have the media telling us that, COVID stops with the vaccine, but that's not what I'm seeing clinically. So that's kind of what led me to the whole, finding VAERS and starting the reports is, that was one of the kind of most critical reports to make is, are these vaccines truly effective in the real world? And from what I was seeing very early on, they were not, despite what the media was telling us. So a lot of my early reports were in fact just that. They were COVID infected patients who were requiring hospitalization despite vaccination.
Wow.
So, and then, all the other odd things, the myocarditis, the pericarditis, the blood clots, the strokes that were happening in people who really had no risk factors, young people. I've never seen this in my career. It is very bizarre. Deaths, people dying within 48 hours of vaccination, suddenly with no illness preceding that. So these are the types of side effects or unusual things I was seeing that caused me to have great suspicion and report them. I don't know, and I said it through the whole time, I don't know if it's the vaccine. That's not my job. My job is that I'm a mandated reporter. If you see something strange, you're supposed to report it. That's with anything in life, especially most critically, a vaccine that had very short-term safety data using a technology we've never used before in vaccinations in humans in the past. Why would we not want full transparency and safety? So again, I was doing these reports. I notified my leadership that this was happening because we received no education about this system prior. I was ignorant. I thought that maybe they just didn't know, right? Maybe this was an oversight. And here I was bringing this as a leader, this is what you do.
If I could pause you just for 1 second, Deb, so the audience understands the relationship of, between VAERS and a pediatric office or a doctor's office or a hospital system. Every pharmaceutical corporation on the face of the planet that produces vaccines, anything deemed to be a vaccine, enjoys full liability protection as passed by a federal law in the early 1990s,
1986.
or 1986, and that was signed by Reagan. Okay, so there is no recourse for vaccines. Other pharmaceutical products, you can sue the manufacturer, you can sue in a variety of ways if you are injured or harmed by that pharmaceutical product. The category of vaccine is completely and utterly unique. So the idea that an entire hospital system, RGH, and your medical doctor, your pediatrician does not know what the vaccine adverse event reporting system is, which is the only way to report a vaccine injury and potentially get compensation for a vaccine injured person, is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that had been going on for decades. And, Deb, I just find that to be such a shocking, everybody knows what it is now, or at least, I mean, people like us who are awake, but there are so many people today who are still getting vaccinated, normies who are watching left-wing news media or the mainstream news media and have no clue that the things that they're dealing with, whether it's a heart condition or cancers or problems, have to do with the vaccines. This is why we need a national discussion about vaccines from the president, from Department of HHS. But so I just wanted to pause there for a moment to explain to people how important this system was, and the hornet's nest that you were kicking when you innocently went in and researched and started filing these reports. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And people just have to understand that this is the safety net, right? This is the mechanism that was put in place by the federal government to assure the American people that if they gave liability protection to pharmaceutical companies, that they are going to make sure these vaccines are safe after rollout. All vaccines are safe after rollout, by having this system in place where medical providers are required to report certain side effects. And for the childhood vaccines, there is a table of reportable events that where we kind of know that these are potential side effects from the childhood vaccines. Now, that's not all the events that are reported, but these are the ones that are required by law. For the COVID vaccines, we did not have a table of reportable events because these were brand new vaccines, a brand new technology. We didn't know long-term safety data. So it was so critical to assure that these health systems were doing these and filing these reports. But unfortunately, at least in my institution, we received no education about the importance of this until I brought it to light. And once I did, there was a very minimal amount of education, if you would call that. I actually have one of our administrator leadership stating that it is not their job as an organization to educate the providers. It is our job to educate ourselves, which again is very counter to the program participation agreement that all institutions signed with the CDC when agreeing to administer these vaccines. So, for us healthcare workers in the hospital, many of us didn't know because we worked in a hospital our entire lives. We didn't give out childhood vaccines. And this education was so critical, it just wasn't done.
Deb, years ago, I want to say it's like 8 years ago, I fired my pediatrician because he didn't know what the vaccine adverse event reporting system was. And I said, buddy, like, you are administering thousands upon thousands of vaccines to little babies and children on a regular basis. How do you not know? This was before COVID. Yeah. that you have to report to this system. It's unbelievable. So
well, in our retraining, the issue is we're never taught that there's any problems with the vaccines. That's not even discussed. It's interesting when I think back to when I was in training and we did our pharmaceutical part of our program. Nearly all of the discussion of these pharmaceuticals was on mechanism of action and potential side effects. We focus so much on side effects to be aware of and what you're supposed to tell your patient. But when it came to learning about vaccines and immunology, I don't recall ever talking about any kind of side effects. Right. So we go into our training and into our careers with this mindset that vaccines are the greatest thing and they have absolutely no risk associated with them. So, and obviously now I realize why that's the case. But when I was a provider, before I even realized, or been in this world, I never thought anything of it. Right? It's terrible. It's terrible. And I think, I think that's the case of most medical providers is we just aren't given any education about it.
Yeah. Be my Valentine on the live chat. We've all been brainwashed for hundreds of years on vaccines. I mean, there has been a large effort to propagandize, particularly the medical community. So doctors, nurses, people who work within healthcare have very strong conditioning to not question vaccines or not talk about vaccine injury. We're talking to Deb Conrad. You can support Deb's effort at IamDebConrad.com. IamDebConrad.com. She is filing a lawsuit. Deb, tell the audience about, so you start filing these reports. You learn about VAERS. You're seeing these adverse events rolling out because you're vaccinating people. You're very concerned about this. You start to file these reports. How many reports in total did you file?
I want to say it was about close to 200.
Okay. And that got you in trouble.
Yes.
They were not, which is, you would think that the reaction would be, oh my gosh, look at all these side effects and these adverse events that are happening post-vaccination. Maybe something's wrong here. That was not the stance of the hospital. Instead, they tried to pressure you, coerce you, and ultimately fired you. Can you tell everyone about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I was gaslit, terribly. Basically, I was told that I'm the only one that is seeing this. So, it kind of makes you feel like, well, must be a little crazy, right? Because they kept saying no one else is reporting these things, no one else, and it's just you. So maybe something's not right with what you're seeing, and what was interesting is that I gave in our emergency room, I put envelopes in the emergency room for the medical providers there, if they were noticing anything unusual like myself, to leave me the demographic sheet for the patient, and then I would file the reports, because nobody has time to do this. No one's getting compensated. No one understands the system, and I was the one that did the most reports, so everybody was comfortable giving me these. Well, I got a lot of reports from other medical providers to file. So again, if I'm the only one seeing this, then why am I getting all these other reports from other medical providers who are seeing exactly what I am? Wow. But still, again, I'm being told this is not reality. So I was audited. I picked, again, and on this audit, I picked the best patients that met the VAERS reporting criteria to a T. And in the end, I was told I was over-reporting. So as a result of that audit, I was no longer allowed to report on any patient, no matter if I became aware of them or not, or a provider asked me to report. I could only report on the patients that I directly took care of. So that started the beginning of that whole censorship, and I couldn't deal with that, because I knew this was required by law. I read that over and over again. I did my own research. By not by agreeing to not adhere to these reporting requirements, I was committing a crime, right? I am not going to be accomplice to that. So I kept pushing back and telling them, no, you cannot do this. This is wrong. This is falsifying medical records. This is the truth of what happened to this patient. This should be put in their medical record, and it should be documented. And so I just kept pushing back, and things just got worse and worse for me. Fortunately, I had Aaron Siri and the Siri and Gilmstead law firm behind me, and they were supporting me, helping me to gather evidence while I was going through this. And I ultimately came out publicly and disclosed what was going on the high wire in September. And then I was fired just a few short weeks after. I was walked out in the middle of my shift around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was surrounded by our human resources department on the busiest floor of the hospital, interrogated in a room, and then I was walked out and humiliated in front of my peers. And I believe I was walked out and fired that day because I whistle blew on the organization.
Right.
They, however, are saying that they fired me because I wouldn't get vaccinated. But again, all of my colleagues and all the other medical providers who were holding religious exemptions that were approved, like myself, were not fired till over a month later.
Right.
So I was the only one that day.
Right.
So I encourage, the public who are listening, if they want to come down to the courthouse on March 11th to hear our arguments and hopefully get past the motion to dismiss, it's going to be at the United States District Court on 2 Niagara Street in Buffalo.
Okay.
And that's March 11th, and it's at 10 o'clock. I know Werner couldn't remember the time, but I had written it down. So it's at 10 o'clock. The public is welcome to come and support me and be there. There's plenty of room. And like Werner said afterwards, he will address the public and kind of explain what went on.
Okay.
It's good for the court to see that the public is aware of this lawsuit, because I am suing on behalf of the public, because people don't realize that part of their taxpayer dollars are going to pay for these vaccines, and also to pay for the compensation program to pay for injuries.
Right.
And if providers are being censored and not allowed to report potential side effects, that is just so abhorrent.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely abhorrent, and there are so many vaccine injured that are suffering right now, and there's still a shroud of deception on their stories. And unfortunately, the election of Donald Trump and the conservatives, and even the appointment of Bobby Kennedy Jr. at HHS, has not lifted that shroud. It hasn't lifted that layer of acceptance that vaccines are safe and effective. And the COVID vaccines, while they might have some problems, have saved millions upon millions of lives. Like, that's like the official line right now, coming out of the federal government, coming out of the COVID Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, coming out of the Trump administration, coming out of the administrative cabinet. Like, this is the line. And so we're going to have to fight from the bottom up at the court level. The efforts of Werner Mendenhall and Deb Conrad are so incredibly important right now, because the vaccine injured they're being gaslit again right now. And, I have seen, videos of vaccine injured groups that are speaking out now saying, we're still here. We're still suffering. We need help. We need justice. We need a reckoning. And unless we continue to support these efforts from the bottom up at the grassroots level and support people like Deb, then, this message will die in obscurity. And we'll go right back to the mRNA vaccines to cure cancer, which was a major advertisement from Pfizer at the Super Bowl, with Donald Trump there in the crowd, saying that the new mRNA technologies, the same technologies that have destroyed the lives of so many millions of Americans, are now going to be deployed to cure the cancer that these Americans likely have gotten because of the SV40 contamination of the original vaccines and all of the mechanisms of death and destruction from the spike protein and the mRNA platform, the lipid nanoparticles, you name it, right? So this is of utmost importance. And Deb, I really want to thank you for your diligent and continued. It is now, you could have just gone your merry way. You could have gotten a new job. You could have stopped. I mean, this is not a lawsuit to win you a lot of money or help you in any way. This is purely to help the vaccine injured. And I commend you for that. I thank you. You are such a good friend of the Shannon Joy Show, and a friend to me as well, in this movement. And just you're an amazing person. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. I can't rest until this issue is dealt with, because again, it affects me personally in the sense that I work in an office. We give vaccines.
Right.
I am not happy with the censorship that has gone on surrounding the safety of vaccine. Because if these vaccines are safe, if all vaccines are safe, then why do you need to censor healthcare providers from reporting potential side effects? Why is there this censorship? And if people just for the heck of it, look at what vaccines we had on the market before the 1986 Act was signed, giving manufacturers liability protection. Compare that to after 1986. How many vaccines came out on the market? Yeah. It was an explosion, and it's been an explosion ever since. Because again, if you can make a product for which you don't have any liability for, I don't know. You would think that
there's no incentive. There's no incentive
to make them safe. Right. There's no incentive. None. And again, the only proof, or the only security blanket that we have to assure us that these things are safe is the VAERS system. That is the only mechanism. Yeah. And yet they're censoring and firing people who are just trying to do the job that they're required to do and report these things. Again, I'm not the person that's supposed to say this vaccine is harmful or not. There are people who are hired and getting paid thousands of dollars who work in the CDC. That's their job. But how can they do their job if they're not given the information from people like me who are on the ground seeing these patients?
That's right.
It cannot be allowed. I mean, if you want trust in vaccines moving forward, we've got to fix this. Either we dismantle the VAERS system and create something else, or we dismantle the liability protection. Something has to give, because patients no longer trust vaccines. Providers don't trust vaccines. This is what has become of this COVID vaccine and the side effects and the gaslighting of vaccine injury. This is where we are right now.
Right.
And as a medical provider, I just want to know if these things are safe so that I can advise my patient. That's all I care about.
Right.
You know, and I cannot stand the fact that this is going on. Because why have a vaccine safety reporting system if they're not going to allow us to use it? Why bother?
Right. Well, and it will continue to go on unless we activate from the bottom up. And it is court cases like this that can begin to push the conversation and move the narrative at the White House and at HHS in the direction that it needs to go. So, Deb, thank you so much for being with us and for your tireless efforts. I am debconrad.com is the website, and anything else people can do to support you.
Just like I said, support Werner. He is the most amazing friend and attorney, and he works so hard to fight for people like myself and for the vaccine injured. So he does most of this stuff pro bono. Amazing. It's just amazing. I mean, he's not getting paid unless, we win. And these lawsuits can go on for years. And he is just such an amazing person. I am so grateful to have him be my attorney. And also I'm so grateful to have him as a friend.
He is a wonderful person. That's freedomcouncil.org. freedomcouncil.org. You can donate there as well to support the over 200 attorneys across the United States of America who are going to continue to push this narrative. Very, very important initiative, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it. Thank you so much, Deb, for being with us.
Thank you again for having me, Shannon.
Of course. And we'll see Deb at the Summit for Truth and Wellness on March 29th. And I'm hoping to bring Werner Mendenhall in as well to be one of our guest panelists on March 29th. Get your tickets at summitfortruth.com, summitfortruth.com. Right now, I think there's a $5 off deal, but it's only good through February 23rd. And I can't remember what the promo code is, but if you scroll down, there is a promo code for $5 off your ticket. So you can get a little discount there. Summitfortruth.com. Get your tickets today. It's going to be a wonderful event. We'll be back in a moment. Hey, everyone. So you know what is scarier than a storm or a blackout? Being completely cut off. Alone, no phone, no internet, no way to reach anyone. This is why I trust sat123.com and their satellite phones to keep me connected no matter what. With a satellite phone from Sat123, it doesn't matter if you're out in the wilderness or caught in the middle of a disaster. This phone works when cell towers don't. It's the ultimate tool for staying in touch when everything else has failed. Here's the best part. Sat123.com is family owned. 100% committed to quality and reliability, and they believe in keeping you and your family safe wherever you are. Right now, if you go to sat123.com/joy, that is sat123.com/joy, and use the JOY promo code, JOY, for 10% off, you'll get 10% off your entire order, which is a phenomenal deal from an amazing company that supports the Shannon Joy Show. Be ready for anything. Stay connected with sat123.com/joy.
After a lifetime of hard work and smart investing, the last thing you want to worry about is losing your retirement savings. Hi, I'm Paul Stone, CEO of Colonial Metals Group. We specialize in helping hardworking Americans like you take back control of their financial future safeguard their savings. In economic times like these, millions turn to physical precious metals as a form of insurance, while conventional investment choices face challenges or even collapse. If you have an IRA, 401k, or other type of retirement account, my team at Colonial Metals Group would like to help you build a financial protection plan outlining the most secure future for you. We've put together a free protection kit showing how you can start investing in precious metals 100% tax and penalty free to protect and grow your wealth. You can download it for free now by clicking the button below. Customers, we're very proud to say, across the country have been very impressed by my team's in-depth knowledge of financial history and their ability to listen to you. We hold the same conservative values you hold and ones our great nation was built on. And we can't wait to start helping you and working with you. Again, just click the button below to download our retirement protection kit for free now.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. It's so amazing. There was a tweet out yesterday from Peter Schiff, who is a regular guest on the Shannon Joy Show and one of our favorites. He is so brilliant. He's written so many great books about currencies and economies and gold and silver and the dollar, you name it. But he tweeted this out yesterday. Everyone is going bonkers on metals. They are defying expectations. With the incoming Trump presidency, all of the analysts thought that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, that they were going to skyrocket, and the optimism about the economy and a new administration who is business friendly, right, was going to tank gold and silver. The opposite has happened, and gold and silver are holding so incredibly strong. It's been written up all over Zero Hedge, the bubble, but Peter Schiff had this to say: with gold trending at 29.40 and silver still down at 32.22, the gold to silver ratio is over 90-1. Since gold is highly likely to continue rising, an explosive catch-up move in silver is likely soon. So if you think you missed the boat on gold, now is the time to look at silver. And I replied, just from my perspective, it's so amazing for me to watch people reject all of this digitalized, tokenized crap and move into hard assets like land, real estate, gold, silver, metals, copper, you name it. This is reminding me, going back to what Deb and I just talked about and remembering the dark days of COVID-19 and the relentless pressure and coercion that was dumped on the American people regarding the vaccine. What's happening right now with the propaganda push to move us into digital or crypto, electronic cash or digital cash. It's relentless. It's everywhere. RFK talked about it at Bitcoin. Donald Trump talked about it at the Bitcoin conference. You have BlackRock, Larry Fink, and all of these, big companies, corporations, and bankers now like pushing Bitcoin. And it's amazing for me to watch the American people reject it. Right? It's reminding me of the 30% of Americans who refuse the poison COVID shots despite the relentless propaganda and grotesque coercion. It's reminding me of the Bud Light revolt against the transgender propaganda. It's reminding me of the Target revolt, right? Where we're just like, you know what? We've had enough. We're not taking it. And so this small remnant of holdouts can actually disrupt the larger plan and expose the greater fraud. And that's exactly what happened with the COVID vaccine. It was the 30%, 35% of American holdouts who said, oh, hell no, right? That created a control group and is now creating all of the problems for the pharma companies and the government and the people who put who put Operation Warp Speed in place. And so this is how little people can defeat the billionaire oligarchs and their larger plans. And it just makes me really happy. And so again, really thrilled to be sponsored by Paul Stone, Colonial Metals Group. He's going to be with us. He's going to be with you next Tuesday live, guest hosting the Shannon Joy Show. You can ask him your questions. But in the meantime, get a silver strategy together. It doesn't hurt to ask them questions. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. You'll get a free safe when you go to my website and also a free gold guide, and you might qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. So that's colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. They're amazing. They're nice. They're kind. As Paul Stone says, they don't hire jerks over at Colonial Metals. So super excited about that. Annie, how much time do we have left in the Shannon Joy Show today? We have about 6 minutes, so we can get to this piece from Catherine Austin Fitts. Speaking of what is to come, right? There's a lot of hopium and excitement and celebration within MAGA Inc., Con Inc., Bizarro Con, conservative media. And there are a few voices. Daniel Horowitz is one of them. We like some of the other great reporting that we're seeing from Solari Report. That's Catherine Austin Fitts, the strident conservative, David Leach, Daniel Horowitz over at Conservative Review, Sasha Latapova, her Substack. The technocracy.news is really great. We have the freethoughtproject.com, which has a lot of independent reporters critical of this administration in a good way, and also Unlimited Hangout. This piece from Catherine Austin Fitts is very important about the plan that is being implemented. It's highly strategic, and unfortunately, I believe that the Trump administration is all in on this plan, along with Elon Musk, who we know is a technocrat. She said, with the Omni war here, the high-speed building of the control grid will look like this. It's going to involve digital IDs. She said, real IDs are being supported with a strong push through the states at the state level and red state governors. This is what the immigration effort appears to be supporting, plus biometrics. So they're going to use the immigration issue to push digital IDs. It will be a federal idea, bringing together a consortium of states, and it will come up through the states, likely pushed by red state governors like Greg Abbott of Texas. And this is going to have to be resisted heavily. Okay. So that's coming. Stargate, she mentions building data centers sufficient to support a complete control grid and all digital monetary systems. So these are the football field length data centers that are going to churn out cryptocurrency and also collect data and process data on every American to support the digital ID and all the other things. So she writes here, rolling out the injection program sufficient to implement the Internet of Bodies and continue lower life expectancy. Funding helps to continue the support of the global rollout of mega vaccine factories. Not sure how Musk's desire to add the chip in your brain fits in, but she suspects that they think injections can get most, if not all of the way done. It's much easier to market them that they're good for you. So they're looking to kind of clear out the insurance rolls. And I don't necessarily disagree with her on that. The third aspect is switching fiscal control to central bankers. So Catherine writes, DoGE and their takeover of the Treasury is a coup d'etat. Their takeover of the Treasury payment systems combined with a purge of civil service designed to end congressional control of fiscal flows and policies. This leaves the New York Fed and global central bankers in complete control of the fiscal line. And we just saw a report from Wired, which is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show on today's show, that is showing that Elon Musk and the technical experts that he brought in to the Treasury did have the power to change the code. This was lied. They lied to the American people and said it was only a read-only access to all of the Treasury data. Indeed, it was not, as reported by Wired. It was actually, had the ability to go in and change the codes, and they did. So I want you to take a look at that. This is a major, major story. We'll look at that tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. She also talks about the social credit system. Catherine writes, it looks like the DoGE takeover of systems is setting up infrastructure to start the social credit system as well, using federal payments. Hate crimes, accusations, and entrapments are designed to assist here. So we're seeing a push for laws against anti-Semitism. This is where you see Kanye involved, right? Kanye is now selling Nazi swastika t-shirts on his website. He's pushing Nazi propaganda and likely influencing someone somewhere in the United States of America to do something terrible. If there's any instance of violence, you will see, in my opinion, very strong legislation and or executive orders. We've already had an executive order from Trump to end, quote unquote, anti-Semitism. These are speech controls, and these will be the Trojan horse that will usher in the controlled speech through the social credit system. Remember, Elon Musk is looking to create X to be that everything app and the social credit system. She talks about the crypto push, the continued of testing of all digital transactions, and the continued using of private crypto while the regulatory framework for crypto is being put into place and stable coins used to significantly improve dollar ability. So we are seeing right now, there were executive orders to this extent, beginning to build the framework within the federal government to create that crypto system. We'll continue to see more of that. This one is important, and we'll end on this because we're about to wrap up the show today. The land grab. One of the big goals, writes Catherine Austin Fitts in this piece, is to use Bitcoin, which is a Ponzi scheme, to swap for real hard assets like land, real estate, artwork, gold, silver. That's where all the big guys, everyone in the know, is getting into real assets. As Lutnick calls it, $5 trillion of land and minerals. If mandated government purchases can run the price up, so the government starts buying Bitcoin, makes it the reserve currency alongside the dollar to establish it as the world reserve currency, that's going to run the price up through the roof because it is a Ponzi scheme. Then the 2% that owns 70% can swap for land on a secret tax-free basis, and you can achieve the MBT, the real core of MAGA, which Catherine says stands for Make Billionaires Trillionaires, okay? Along with the shutting down of federal cash flow and credit to average people, this will dramatically lower the economic footprint of the average American. Since climate change was not working, plunder will. The land grab play can be done through Lutnick and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which was established via executive order by President Trump, as well as the Treasury with Scott Bessent. Remember, Scott Bessent is the protege of George Soros. Scott Bessent was George Soros's right-hand man in the crashing of the British pound in the 1990s. He made George Soros a cool $1 billion, and Soros has funded Bessent, who is now the Secretary of the Treasury, for the past 3 decades, seed funding his multi-billion-dollar equity firm. So all of the players are in place here, and they can do that through the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So the scheme that Bessent engaged upon with George Soros in crashing the pound could be the exact same scheme, or not the exact same, but a similar scheme to benefit, once again, the billionaires and create trillionaires. So this is what we're looking at here. We didn't get to the marketing of this. We'll do this tomorrow, but this is a really important aspect of Catherine's piece, how they're going to use propaganda, fake feuds, the two-party political system, fear of the Democrat, and all sorts of psychological operations to trick you into accepting this. Unfortunately, this is coming in at the hands of Donald Trump and DoGE, and tragically, far too many conservatives don't see what is coming. We got to go. Annie is talking to me right now in my ear. Guitar Lily, Jerry Alato, Slim Jones. Thank you guys so much. CJP Rumble, thanks for being with us today. Zen Woman, Rick Rocker, you guys are amazing. And Soylent Goy, Don't frag me, bro. Thank you guys so much for being with us today in the Shannon Joy Show. Garth Hilton, imagine that. Billionaires need to become trillionaires. As you guys know, they have way too much money, way too much power, and have a God complex. So this is what we're dealing with. They have to be stopped, and we're going to see what we can do about stopping them here in the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you for being with us today. We will be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the show.